Indie games are in a pretty incredible place right now. They are redefining and innovating in a way that mainstream games aren't and can't. And they're also making 2D cool again. I'm sure I speak for everyone who matters when I say 2 dimensions is the best number of dimensions ever. But even with all these incredible indies, there are still a few that stand out as even more spectacular than the rest. In 2008 we had World of Goo, in 2009 we had Braid, and in 2010 we have the Misadventures of P.B. Winterbottom. Just like World of Goo, and just like Braid, Winterbottom represents everything that is special about games as a medium and as an art form. I'm looking forward to the next shooter as much as anyone, but it's these games that make me truly happy that computer games exist. It sounds goofy to say it, but I'm just filled with so much joy when I play games like Winterbottom, and it's a feeling that no other medium can invoke on this level. The reason I've mentioned World of Goo and Braid by name twice is that their influence on Winterbottom is very clear in the music, art, gameplay, and overall tone. But Winterbottom is in no way derivative at all. It's very much its own game, and even though it's something of a time-bending, two-dimensional platformer, the fact that it's very distinctly unlike Braid in all its main mechanics is doubly impressive. Winterbottom is styled as a silent film, making use of near total black and white, dialogue written on title cards rather than voiced, and music that feels like it's being played by an orchestra under the stage. It's a style that's very distinct, and while black and white might be off-putting for some people, at least conceptually, Winterbottom is a gorgeous game. You play as the eponymous Winterbottom, a pot-bellied, pie-obsessed man whose greed lands him in a bit of a pickle and he has to set things right by collecting pies. It's delightfully absurd, and the writing on the title cards, which mostly rhymes, is occasionally funny but always charming, and comes as a welcome reward at the end of each level when you're already buzzing from the sense of accomplishment as having solved some ingenious puzzle. After a few levels of getting to grips with the basics of walking and jumping and floating with his umbrella, as well as stuff like dealing with buttons and levers, you're introduced to the real gameplay, which is that you're able to record your actions by holding the record button and then doing whatever you want to do. Once you release the record button, your recording, your clone, will do whatever you did on a loop forever until he's disturbed. The early puzzles do a great job of easing you into this new idea, tasking you with things like simply creating a clone who's standing still and jumping on his hat to reach a higher area, or hitting a clone to send him flying through the air to collect otherwise out of reach pies, while later levels have you dealing with as many as half a dozen clones or more, each running this way and that, standing still to be jumped on, hitting levers, flying through the air, and all with perfect timing. You're solving the puzzles one step at a time, all at once, with each step, each clone entirely reliant on all the others. And while the idea is inherently trial and error-ish, at no point is it anything but extremely enjoyable. How many clones you can have at any time is determined by the level, with the number in the upper left of the screen keeping count. Most levels allow no more clones than the absolute minimum needed to collect all the pies, and while most of the levels aren't overly hard, a few are almost hair-pullingly difficult. These roadblocks come as a bit of a surprise, as the rest of the game is generally easier, but at no point is it ever simple. But these extra challenges just make the game all the more satisfying in the end. It's a little unfortunate that you can't really skip levels and return to them later on, Braid style, but it shouldn't be a problem. The design is impeccable, ingenious. Every level is creative and brilliant, and out of 50-something levels, none of them feels unnecessary or anything but polished to perfection. And figuring out the solutions, which can take anywhere from a few seconds to 10 minutes or more, is richly rewarding. Whether I was playing catch with two of my clones, where one clone is the ball, or creating a swarm of clones, each one getting further into the level than the last by using each other as mobile platforms, I had a smile on my face the whole time I was playing. It's such an enjoyable game, and every aspect works and plays off of everything else brilliantly. The main game is split into 5 worlds, with around 10 levels in each, and like games like Braid and World of Goo, new ideas are gradually introduced to keep things both fresh and challenging. After the basics of things like making clones, standing on them and hitting them, you'll be introduced to elements like a limited time to collect all of the pies, having to collect the pies in a particular order, hazards like crushing traps and fire, and more. These additional elements do a fantastic job of fleshing out the clones idea, and if having half a dozen clones running around the level collecting pies doesn't convince you that this game is brilliant, then the things you encounter in World 4 surely will. There's usually a sense with games that their ideas aren't as fully explored as they might be, but this isn't the case with Winterbottom. There's a strong feeling as you play that the developers really put everything they have into the game, and everything you could think of. They already thought of it first, tried it, and threw away because they thought of something even better. In addition to the 50 or so main levels, which ought to take you around 3 hours, there are 30 bonus levels complete with leaderboards for the competitive, where speed is key. You'll find that even if you only play the game once, and don't even play the bonus levels, you'll get more than your money's worth out of it, as it's surprisingly cheap, weighing in at a mere £4 or $5. Frankly, I think the soundtrack alone justifies the price tag. The music evokes a true sense of wonder, and perfectly fits the game's facetious, slightly absurd tone. The same goes for the art style. It's a gorgeous game, contrary to what you may expect from Black and White. Every level is filled with interesting things to look at, from clocks to giant pies, and the use of shading really draws the eye to the key areas in each level. Some games, like Half-Life, I enjoy on a visceral level. Others, like Fallout, I appreciate intellectually, but it takes another type of game entirely to do the most special thing a game can, to engage my emotions. And the fact that these games are so rare and so few makes them all the more important. Historically, it's been games like Lemmings and Theme Park that I've put on that list. More recently, games like World of Goo and Braid. Today, Winterbottom goes on that list. A particularly famous film critic has recently said that games aren't art, and while they may be eventually, they won't be for a very long time. This person has obviously not played The Misadventures of P.B. Winterbottom.